Welcome to another session of secular mental health. I call this series Breaking the Algorithm. Next year I'm going to move into some other material, but part of this is building up to kind of what we're getting at. Today's meeting is going to be on existential freedom and the dread of personal responsibility. So this is a little bit of a hot topic for I think every, like a non-believer and a believer. Even in our groups, there's like a debate on whether there's free will, there's no free will, and we'll be discussing that today. And then going into discussion about responsibility, which kind of gets more to probably what everybody's trying to get at with this discussion. So how do we view freedom? We're going to be covering that. And what do we take responsibility for, and the dread. So to start off, I'm going to read the first two paragraphs of our of the worksheet, kind of to build the foundation of what we'll be discussing today. So according to existential psychology, there are four primary existential unknown concerns that all religious and non-religious people dread and deal with throughout their lives: freedom, personal responsibility, meaningless, purpose, isolation, aloneness, and death, mortality. These are emotionally important ideas that all conscious humans think about throughout our lives, but may never know for certain. According to existential psychology, existential concerns are driven inevitably from living and being aware of being alive. What we learn, what we are taught, our lived experiences, our biological cognitive capacity determines the level of awareness and dread we may feel for these existential unknowns. For this month, we will be exploring the difficult emotional and psychological balance of taking personal responsibility and understanding when to let go. That's the most important lesson for today. Of all the existential dreads, I think this is the most influential and difficult throughout our lives. We will explore Erich Fromm's conclusion that how we choose to deal with our dread of personal responsibility has profound effects on our lives. In my view, of all the existential dreads that we struggle with, personal responsibility appears to be the clearest delineation between why people evolve into secular versus religious views. My opinion. But we will be discussing it today. So let's get started. So freedom. If anybody read, I have kind of like what the existential idea about freedom is. Does anybody else have any like definitions for freedom, or maybe ideas about like what might be free, what's not free? Maybe if you want to talk about what you know about determinism.
Well, just had this discussion this afternoon. So freedom, does it apply to myself? Does it apply to how I interact with other people? When does my freedom infringe on other people's freedom? And what exactly is freedom? Does that mean if I do whatever I want without any cognition of the consequences? As Mark Twain said, it's like sitting on a keg of dynamite and touching it off just to see where you'll get blown to. So that's, there are tremendously deep philosophical implications of freedom.
Exactly. I think that's why there's so much debate about it, and why people feel very strongly about, do we have free will, do we not? Do you prefer determinism? Do you prefer existential freedom? Anybody else?
Yeah, I guess maybe from a psychological standpoint, freedom is the ability to make meaningful choices.
Like how do you bring meaning to it?
Choices that matter.
Mm.
Like, how do you define meaning there?
Mhm.
Basically that you are self-determination. That you are deciding what's going to happen to you. You are deciding, even in a lot of cases, how you're going to deal with something versus having like a reactive mindset. I think is almost counter to freedom.
Do you think reactive determinism is reaction, or?
I think it can be. I think it skews more toward determinism than freedom if you're just reacting thoughtlessly without making, I don't want to use the word determination, but like making a conscious decision to behave a certain way.
So I heard conscious there. Is that a distinction to make? What do you guys think? Conscious, unconscious, or can they both be conscious?
You
or
can be
unconscious?
free to not think about stuff, I guess. It's such a broad term that you kind of have to define your context.
Yeah.
I would say this swings on how finely you are prepared to parse the question. So if I say, well, I freely chose to come here tonight, that would be hard to argue against for most people. It would be hard for me to argue against that. However, the fact that I came here tonight, again, hinges on a number of other things. The fact that you chose to be here as opposed to going to 4th Street in Harrisburg.
Right.
So that's part of the determinism, and it depends heavily on how carefully you want to slice it to see what you want to see. It really comes down to a fractal analysis, which is, how carefully do you want to slice the pieces to see, is this a curve or is it a series of straight lines that approximate a curve? Well, that's what we're thinking about.
Right.
And again, I think this is heavily dependent upon your, the term, biological cognitive capacity. I think with a deeper biological cognitive capacity, you can see that, it's not a curve, it is a very finely divided series of straight lines. Well, most people, I don't see that. Well, that's because your cognitive capacity is not that finely determined.
Yeah, I think I like what you're getting at here, because this is probably, or it definitely is, how people are struggling one way or the other, where
Right.
they're going. They're leaning very much into one, this is how it's measured, or this is how it's measured,
Right.
and not really an in-between, so to speak. Maybe it'd be good for me to define what the determinist argument is. If I get it wrong, anyway. But determinism, the reason why they say that there is no free will is because everything could potentially be measured. If we can figure out every cause all the way back to whatever originated for any choice that's made, as long as that can be done, then everything's determined, therefore no free will. Radical freedom, the existential idea of it is that you recognize exactly that there are a series of determined things that exist, measurable scientific things, 2 + 2 = 4. But what they're saying is it's more about, at the moment of decision, you're going to go on what you are conscious of at that moment. So whatever it is, it may be based on biased information. It may be influenced by whoever's in the room at the time. But that is, as they say, at that moment you're going to make a decision one way or the other. And you don't make that decision based on all these measurements. No one actually does that. And also the argument, I guess, is we actually haven't been able to measure everything. We don't have a supercomputer that can do it yet. So it's based on a presupposition that if we could measure everything, therefore no determinism, nothing can be free will. But we actually haven't been able to do that. But that's the argument on that side. And then on this side, it's more people are imperfectly making that decision based on the perception, conscious perception at this moment. So that's how they say one way or the other. Does that sound right? Any clarifications or any ideas that anybody else has?
Anytime, so I've been involved in a lot of discussions on free will, and I always want to ask, what does it matter? The appearance of free will is what I have, whether I truly have free will or it's all been determined. It doesn't matter. I have the appearance of free will,
Right.
and so it doesn't really matter. It's sort of like the argument when people say, "Am I a brain in the vat or am I a living, breathing human?" Well, it doesn't matter if I'm living in a simulation, but it presents to me as a real physical world. It doesn't really matter. It's, to me, I have free will, and to me, I am living in a physical world. It doesn't matter. All these people pick apart all these little things, and it doesn't really matter because I appear to have free will.
If free will is an illusion, the illusion is so good that it doesn't matter if it's real or not.
Yeah,
Because I don't see hardcore determinists, like hardcore biological determinists, living their life as if they don't make decisions.
right.
And why?
Because that illusion is so good.
Well, why?
Well, not making a decision is making a decision. So,
Right.
you.
That's
I mean, you can't just say, okay, carry me, like I'm laying in floating in a river, take me wherever. Well, that's making a decision to not be involved, so you're still making a decision. So, to me, it doesn't matter. It appears to me like I have free will, so I just go with it. And all this, I mean, there can be interesting discussions, but it doesn't really make a difference because we all believe we have some measure of free will.
And life in some way, life cannot be totally passive. There's some, grasping and deciding for everything you decide for, you're deciding against something else. So it's like a complex decision.
This is something that I thought was a good enough argument against determinism a couple months back when I was listening to some Daniel Dennett stuff, and I just listened to Sapolsky. I didn't listen to his book on free will. I listened to Behave, general behavior, but it touched a little bit on free will, and I felt like since I listened to Sapolsky, I would listen to some Dennett to make up for it. But that one of the concepts I got, I think, out of Dennett, or that I kind of teased out of Dennett, I don't think he says it explicitly, is if there is no free will, why does therapy work? Like specifically, no, he didn't say it explicitly. I kind of came to the conclusion, it's like, well, if there's no free will, why do we have this system of teaching people to recognize when they're not making decisions and think their decisions through? And I've seen like internet determinists saying, well, that's exactly evidence of determinism, but it seemed a little grasping to me, but I'm pretty biased to the one side, so I might have missed something in your argument.
I think like what you got, I think especially your point is that it's, people are kind of nitpicking and you were saying like there's really a parsing out to really get to why people are siding one way or the other. What I really want us to come away with today is, let's make this simpler somehow. And I think I have a solution, which is existential, their existential theory. First, I wanted to point out or ask everybody, so where do you guys think karma exists on determinism versus radical?
I don't believe in karma.
I know, but where would it be on this?
Okay, not as a cosmic force, but as if you treat people badly, they're gonna be rooting for you to fail.
Right.
So in that sense, karma, but it's not
Is it deterministic? Or is
it's just, everybody you step on your way up is gonna be rooting for you to fail.
It depends on if you view karma as a social mechanism or as a metaphysical.
I only view it as a social mechanism.
that, but both of those, is it deterministic to say all of these bad things you've done adds up to eventually you getting something negative done to you?
No, it's not guaranteed.
It's deterministic if you're looking at it as a metaphysical happening. If you're looking at it as a social thing, maybe you can get away with it for a while before enough people have heard enough bad shit or been mistreated by you.
Or maybe you can make a choice to reform yourself and transform into, learn from these feedbacks.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it's also the flip side of the standard question is, why do good things happen to bad people?
Mm-hmm.
Some of the worst people I know are very charming and aren't going to pay social consequences for being completely shitty people. It's,
See
a lot of like narcissists are that way.
I see a lot of why questions here. What about God take the wheel?
What?
God take the wheel. What would that be? Would that be a
Or is
deterministic?
the song Jesus Take the Wheel?
Yeah.
It's deterministic, but they are making a choice to let go. So a little column A, a little column B.
Okay. So right, center-ish.
I'm not going to do shit that whatever God determines is what I'll accept.
So I
No,
wonder-
but they are making the decisions. They just frame it as God told them to do it, or God. I mean, they are justifying their actions.
They are.
God always agrees with them.
They say Jesus take the wheel, but they never go hands free on the highway.
No. Well,
I think it's also a function of just giving up on continuing to try, just like avoiding the feeling of responsibility if there's failure.
It's
That I really think that's
radical
part of it.
acceptance through a religious lens.
Exactly.
Which brings us to responsibility. I would make the argument as, well, I guess it's kind of my opinion, but I'm in the direction of the existential way of answering this question. The way that they look at it, and especially with radical free will, they both exist, but what are we really asking? What do we really want to know, especially when it comes to people's decisions? Like, why do they choose one thing or another? Thank you. Which side, determinism, radical freedom, which one is the responsibility side and which one's not taking responsibility?
Obviously, you're responsible when you're free to make the decision.
Right.
I think that's one reason some humans prefer autocratic governments, so that they, can be led and just don't have the burden of all this deciding.
So you think it's they don't have to take responsibility, someone else?
Right.
Okay. So that's this side, deterministic, not responsible. If we're going to be binary about it or polar about it.
well, people probably, they don't bother to vote or become involved in their community, volunteer, do anything. They don't want to have any responsibility. And
Why would they think that?
It's easy.
Is determinism easy, or is taking?
I would say
Taking
if you're giving up and not really you're not being involved, that's easy.
Hmm.
You're following a leader instead of being a leader is easier.
So this side's easy. Would we agree taking responsibility is hard?
Harder.
Harder, yeah.
Depends on the level of responsibility.
I'm having a little trouble with this dichotomy.
Okay. What do you think?
Well, it seems from what I keep hearing from people is that most people want the illusion of freedom, but they also want the illusion of determined.
Yeah.
And so it depends heavily on the consequences of how it turns out. You know, oh, I didn't really choose that because it turned out badly, so it's not my fault.
They don't want consequences.
They don't want, they don't want responsibility for the consequences, and so responsibility seems to me to be heavily influenced by the consequences. And so that's a, okay, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to take either the rewards or the deficit of how it turns out. So is that easy? Well, it might be in some cases, but it might not. And so are you willing to put your money down on bet it all on red? Well, okay, so it's all gone now. Oops, I didn't want to do that. Why did you sell me, something else?
Somebody else.
Yeah.
Biden made me do it. There's, who do we know that has never taken a responsibility for any decision, has never admitted that he was ever wrong?
I do know somebody like that.
That's who I hear being described with never taking responsibility.
You don't necessarily like the framing that determinism is not taking responsibility, or that determinism is easy. Do you agree with the framing there, or what were you thinking that?
Well, are we talking about before the fact or after the fact? You see?
Right. There's a great question, and I think to answer that with existential concerns, existentially, it's always what we're having dread about is the unknown.
Exactly.
So it's the decision before it's happened.
Right. Yes. Before things happen,
If you don't know the results, you don't know what's going to happen.
Well, exactly. I love to tell people, predicting the future is so much easier after it happens.
Right. But if we believe that it's determined, maybe we don't have to worry about that. Because we assume that something's going to go a certain kind of way.
Well, but again, I think the problem there is that the illusion of free will is, as Dieter said, so strong that you really have to have cognitive dissonance to put that aside and say, oh, it's all going to work out. Well, that requires a tremendous amount of willpower to say, oh, yes, it's all going to work out. That's why, when I say, well, good, let's have, for Republicans, all their health care will be faith healing. Oh, well, yeah, they all talk that way, but they don't do that.
That's true.
Right.
That's true.
And
Sure.
so I just had the discussion again this afternoon. Jehovah's Witnesses, they refuse blood transfusions.
Yeah, that's true.
However, people I know at Hershey Medical Center say that when someone comes in needing a blood transfusion, you know, after a horrible accident or something, I'll take the leader, the authority figure, into a separate room away from other people and explain, look, it's going to be death. We either transfuse them or they die.
Right.
Well, then usually, almost always, the person caves in and says, oh, well, in that case, go ahead and do it. Don't tell anybody.
Interestingly, you're pointing out where there's definitely a determined answer that death, a finality,
Right,
if you don't make a decision here
right,
to get the transfusion.
right.
Before that, they were leaning, like you said, very willfully into the idea,
That God was going to take care of it. Yeah.
always,
Right.
yeah, I won't need a transfusion.
I've seen lots of people use determinism as a post hoc, not rationalization, but like a post hoc denial of responsibility.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that I guess that wasn't meant to be.
Yeah,
Right.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
I would agree with that as well. I think to maybe kind of get more to the point of why I'm framing it this way in particular, I think, especially when we're talking about existential ideas, we are talking about more of metaphysical, social, and maybe not so much measurable things. This is more of your perception.
Yeah.
And
right.
the appearance of free will is where this is really applicable. It's not, and I think what I'm trying to get at here is the appearance of free will and the imagined idea of it. Determinists sometimes will lean into that, saying that because it's all an illusion and everything can be measured up to that point, therefore we don't have free will. But what are you really asking a person? What do you really want to know about them? Do you want the answer that everything is determined why they're doing what they're doing right now? Or is your question more about, are they taking responsibility, or are they not willing to take responsibility? I think that's what we're usually actually asking here, because it is an illusion either way. When you take responsibility, it depends on what you're thinking about in that moment. If you're advocating only your personal responsibility, then you're leaning into the determined somebody else, some other thing, the whole universe is going to take care of this for me. That's actually what I think is the actual question we're asking here.
And with like the it wasn't meant to be thing, I hear people say that like if a relationship doesn't work out, or they lose a friend,
Right.
And it's like, okay, so you didn't do anything wrong in the relationship, you didn't fail to perceive something about this person, it just the universe decided this was not going to happen.
Right.
Like, nobody's responsible for anything that happened.
So, on that even, with the universe, it all led up to that point where somebody does die, and you could measure it all the way back. Determinism still exists there, but still the question actually is there, what are you willing to take responsibility for? What did they want to feel or believe was true before the unknown was shown?
And going back to the free will versus determinism debate, another thought is like, okay, well, that was caused by my life experiences and my brain chemistry, and that happened because of this, and that happened because of this, and suddenly, like 20,000 years ago, a butterfly farted, to take the example to the ridiculous. Does that mean I'm not making any, like, that change, that's what determined my course? Like, you can't operate as if you're not in charge of anything.
Right.
If you're not taking responsibility for agency in your own brain, like, what are you doing?
There's big
anywhere?
consequences.
Like, yeah.
Um,
Like, even if you could predict every decision I'm gonna make, if we got good enough at measuring what's going on in somebody's brain, you can't live your life like you're not making decisions.
Plus,
We're not wired that way.
what existential psychology says about that, at the moment that you're trying to determine, let's say you can actually make all the predictions, you got all the information right in that moment. To have the moment where you're thinking about it, it's actually changing your decision in that instant as well. So it's almost like a loop of like, you're countering your argument in the existential sense.
It's an interesting intellectual exercise, but I don't know that it, like I said, I don't even think hardcore determinists live by what they say about decision making.
I would agree with that. Which brings me to the next point here. Like, what can we break this down as? Like, what are we really asking here? And this is what I really wanted to point out more so. We can get into the details of determinism and radical free will and parse out a lot of details, but what are we really asking about the person? Like, what do we really want to know? You cannot necessarily predict everything that somebody's going to do, but what we want to know about the person is, are they conscious when they make their decisions? Are they aware of all the things that might be important when they're making a decision? They might not be, or they might be. Are they intentional in their decision? Are they making a spontaneous choice, like ice cream? You know, I can say all my events back 20,000 years ago led to the point, chocolate or strawberry. Chocolate. I would argue that's getting ridiculous at that point. That's not actually what you mean to ask. You're not trying to predict everything up to that point where I pick chocolate ice cream. The truth is, sometimes we do make a choice right there and it doesn't matter. Chocolate, strawberry, whatever. I'm just gonna go with, everything's leaning chocolate, I'm gonna go crazy and go with strawberry. Even though every force may go towards chocolate, I'm going strawberry in defiance. Like, and that is the point. We're not asking everything predicted up to, we're asking, what are you taking responsibility for? Why did you pick strawberry or chocolate? Because you won't be able to tell yourself everything that measured up to that 20,000 years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry I did that to you, that butterfly farted way back.
Right.
Set this chain of events into motion.
Yeah. So in this, again, a binary or spectrum, taking responsibility on totally one side of it, when we're talking about what a person chooses to do to make a decision, these are the most important variables that will determine if it's going to be a responsible decision or whether they're going to perceive it as responsible. Because they're conscious of things, they might actually take responsibility for something, whereas if they weren't conscious of it, how can you take responsibility? And same with spontaneity. You can go with spontaneity and it could be a reaction, or if it's intentional, where you're just, I'm gonna just pick something random, that's actually intentional, but random. It's different from reaction. So on the other spectrum of not taking responsibility would be unconscious, unaware of, being an automaton. I put that on there because I'm going to quote from Eric Frommleiter. So I'm pulling a lot of this existential stuff from that idea. No agency and not responsible. So if you are feeling like, I don't want to take responsibility for, say, voting, which one of these would make more sense? Is a person being conscious about their decisions that they're not going to vote, or are they more so wanting to be unconscious, not dealing with, maybe feeling like they had no agency?
They're making a conscious decision, but it's to abdicate their responsibility
True.
in a democracy.
Right. I think that's why I like the existential breakdown of this is the real question about free will or freedom. It's not actually a measurement of like determinism or metaphysics. It's actually whether somebody wants to take responsibility for something or not. What are they choosing to choose? Well, that'll tell you whether they want to take responsibility or not. Just like you said, abdication of responsibility, I would argue that's probably what's going on. What do you think about determinists wanting to be called an automaton?
They're probably not real crazy about that.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. What about Do you think people that are determinists think they have no agency?
They seem to argue against it, but
But if they were told, actually, you got to sell your house, you have to sell it to me for $1, would they do that?
No.
Feeling like they have no agency.
No.
Exactly. Libertarians, where would they be on this scale?
Well,
in
again,
regards to
again, I'm having trouble with the dichotomy, because most libertarians I know are all for radical freedom
They are.
until the consequences come in, and then say, well, I didn't want that to happen. Oh, well, you wanted the freedom,
Right.
and now you don't want to live with the consequences. So,
yeah,
and that's what I see, a big hedging here. And that's why responsibility, to me, says, how much have I thought about this? How much have I weighed the logical outcome? I can't know the future, but I can weigh the logical outcomes. If I go out there and sit in the middle of that road, the logical outcome I would be run over by a car.
Totally.
But that might not be the actual outcome. The actual outcome I could sit there for 3 days and a car would never hit me. But the logical outcome, the logical consequence would be that I'd be hit by a car. And so,
or the state authority would come and
right, or something,
And
right,
probably before 3 days.
which would be even more upsetting to a libertarian.
right. And so consequently, that's where I see the logical consequences versus the actual consequences. And responsibility, I think, has to do more with the logical consequences, or I guess I shouldn't say more. It has to do, on the one hand, with logical consequences, but on the other hand, with the actual consequences.
Right.
Libertarians are very deontological, in that everything revolves around freedom is good no matter what. And it's like, okay, well, freedom in this freedom in this situation leads to this outcome, less freedom leads to this generally more agreeable outcome, and no, freedom good. Like they don't want to, it's just the core thing.
Almost as if their freedom is deterministic when they look at it.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, well,
Right.
deontology is very
Exactly.
close to determinism. It's, I
And-
think, an abdication of thinking things through.
Where they
it's
are.
the opposite of utilitarianism or consequentialism. It's just, this is good, I'm done thinking.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think this is where it sounds like you're parsing out like the actuality and potentially what is the most probable or determined result of sitting in the road.
Right.
And we're not, I think for the most part, we're not actually asking that question. We want to know, are they actually sitting in the road and are they aware they might get run over? Are they aware that other people might not see them? Are they aware of the people that have to clean up the mess afterwards might get traumatized by it? Are they concerned about that? That's what we're really asking. Or what we really want to know is, are they taking responsibility? Or is it determinist, like the example we're giving, do they not care?
Right.
Versus do they care? And I think that's really what we're talking about when we're asking about free will. Are they going to take responsibility and make a decision, or are they going to abdicate their responsibility for a situation? So, moving on a little bit here. So, our activity for this evening. We don't have to go in too deep about it, but this is the whole point of this, and especially the parsing out of responsibility. How much, when we're doing or thinking about what we're going to take responsibility for, are we going to do everything that we want and think we should do? Or are we going to try to figure out what we can take responsibility for? Are we taking on too much responsibility? So, for example, what do we want to do? I want there to be world peace. Can I take responsibility for that? Yeah, I can do quite a bit to try to bring that about. But how much of that am I going to do? And how much of an effect am I going to have? Especially if we're looking at this is just my perception of the situation. It's appearance of free will. What am I going to take responsibility for? I can convince myself to take responsibility for everything.
Right.
And is that rational? Is that logical?
Right.
And why would that be logical or rational? That's what I'm trying to parse out. Can we determine something that we want to do and that we can take responsibility for?
No, the amount of responsibility you take should be on some sort of a sliding scale in line with your amount of influence.
Okay.
Like, I can't invest a lot of my mental well-being in taking responsibility for world peace because there's very little I can personally do. It may be something I care about, but I have to realize, like, I can't be heavily invested in doing that because I can only do what I can do.
Right.
And if my care versus my ability to influence are rational or crazily unbalanced, that's not going to be good for my mental health. If I feel responsible for it, but I can't influence it.
Right. Does anybody have a good example of where they take on too much and they probably shouldn't take on that much?
As you're talking about this, a scene in a movie comes to mind. If you've seen the movie Schindler's List, at the end of the movie, he has saved a number of Jews. And at I think it's probably just about the last scene in the movie, he is concerned, like, oh, my gold cufflinks. Why did they keep my gold cufflinks? If I had sold them, I could have maybe saved another Jew. The car. I should have gotten rid of the car. If I had sold the car, I could have saved a few more Jews. So his idea is that he could have always done more. Why did he not? Now, the interesting ending to that movie was that it started out on the diametrically opposite side, where he was saying, oh yeah, I want this, I'm going to do this. He was utterly unscrupulous in the beginning of the movie, saying, yes, I'm going to just do all I can to enrich myself. But somewhere he had a moral awakening and said, oh yeah, I think I should try to save some of these Jews. And so that's where, you know, how much responsibility is realistic, I don't know.
Well, I think you answered it, actually. And that's what I'm pointing out here. We should all take on the amount of responsibility or what we can balance. We shouldn't take on all of responsibility, because we quite literally could.
Yeah.
We could consider everything as our thing to be responsible for. And we can do as little or as much as we choose to do. Point of this exercise is to think about what you possibly are doing too much of and figuring out when you could potentially let go. Because what you really want to do when you're I don't think anybody in this room actually has trouble taking responsibility. I think that's a good thing. However, we can sometimes take on too much when we maybe need to back off so that we can actually do maybe bigger goals. Like, how much can you achieve in a lifetime versus going full bore for 10 years and dying early because you stressed yourself out and had a heart attack, say. So how much more good could you do in the long run, for example? Might be one way to look at it. What does everybody think? Do you have any things that you overtook responsibility for and you were able to let them go so that you could kind of focus on balance or other things?
Actually, when I think about it, I think my experience as a pilot goes a long way in that regard. Because when you're flying an airplane, that's a pretty decisive environment. You know, if you throw up your hands and say, well, I'm going to let God take care of it. Well, God is going to take care of it probably only one way. You know, you're going to proceed to the earth and become dead. And so, otherwise, you know, I've got to figure, okay, can I make it to that airport? Should I try to land in this field? You know, should I open the door and jump out with my parachute? You know, what exactly are my options and what are my best options? And how do I weigh them?
What can you live with?
Right, what can I live with? Yeah, because I remember, so I've been a skydiver for a long time, and so I just used to routinely fly with a parachute. Nobody else did. And I remember the guy who ran the airport saying, I don't like you having that parachute. And I said, yeah, I know you don't. I said, but let me tell you, I'm going to try to save this airplane. You know, because his idea was that as soon as something would go wrong with the airplane, I'd jump out and let the airplane go in when I could have saved it. And I said, no, I said, I think I'm going to try to save that airplane. And the one time when the engine went bad, I did save it, flew it down to the ground and landed it safely. So I didn't jump out, but I could have. But again, do I take responsibility for, you know, that's where I say the actual versus the logical consequences. Had I not jumped out and tried to land the airplane and then crashed and killed myself, destroyed the airplane anyhow, people would have said, I had a parachute, why didn't he just jump out? Well, because at the time, it seemed like that wasn't the best idea. Might it have been the best idea? Yes, it might have. But again, that's where the determinism comes in. You know, first of all, if I didn't have the parachute, that would eliminate that option. So that option's gone if I don't have the parachute.
We're not talking about the determinism of the crash of the plane. We're talking about your choice, what you chose to take responsibility for.
Right.
Not knowing the outcomes of whether it's going to crash, whether you're going to be able to just jump out, survive,
right,
doing a parachute. You chose to land that. You chose to take responsibility.
Right.
To that level.
Right.
And you could live with it too.
Right. Yeah.
Now it's an awesome story. So that's the end of today's discussion. We can discuss a little bit more after this, but my sources for this presentation, obviously lots of existential theorists. A lot of us are familiar with a lot of these people. The next month is going to be on probability versus faith. Especially in regards to us secular people, we could probably debate this a bit, but we have a certain way we probably always look at this. But I'm sure we can come up with like ways of clarifying which one we choose more and get into the details more. If anybody wants to check out my videos, they're on that link there. And thanks everybody for attending.